Hello, greetings everybody, and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So I know some of you are looking for the 8 o'clock release of ranking the albums. Well, I've decided basically to change this to 9 o'clock because of my work schedule sometimes doesn't allow for that, so I've had to change it. And so I get home a little bit later, I have to record it and then upload it. And I actually did the entire episode and went to upload it and realized I erased it. So now I got to do it again. So bear with me, it might be a little later than even 9. So anyways, we're back here with ranking the albums. We did 2 series already. The last one ended I think it was about 3 weeks ago, in which Iron Maiden's Book of Souls outperformed and beat Led Zeppelin's Presence. So we're going to do another series like this, 8 episodes, 2 semifinals and a finals again starting tonight. And I'm going to change just one element about it. But before I get going, I should explain to you what it is we're doing here. So Ben, who is a subscriber of mine, gives me... Oh, I forgot my hat too. I was wondering why it was so bright. Yeah, that's a little better. So Ben, who is a subscriber of mine, gives me 4 albums from his vast collection of albums, and I listen to them, and then I rank them according to how I like them, with the number 1 rank going on to the semifinals at the end of the 8 weeks. So tonight I'm going to change just one thing in how we're going to do it. So from now on, rather than give you the album who's in 4th place and talk about it, and then the album in 3rd place and talk about it, I'm going to give you the discussion about each of the albums first and then give you the rankings after. So it's just a little bit different for me. I just decided that I wanted to do it that way. So the first album, the albums as he gave me them were Samson's Shock Tactics from 1981, I believe. Angel, the American Angel band, with their album Hell of a Band from 1976. Another Angels, the same Angels band, well, mostly the same Angels band with the same logo and everything, from 2023. This is a new album by this band, this classic rock band, 47 years from the past to now. And they still look pretty damn good for guys probably approaching 70 years of age. And that album is called Once Upon a Time. And then the last album of the 4 is Magnum, and their second album from 1979 called Magnus 2. So those are the 4 albums we're going to be doing tonight. And I'm going to start by talking about the Samson album because it was the one given to me first. So this is Shock Tales. I've not heard this album before, so it's new to me. I'm going to need my glasses here to read my notes if I have to. So this album is, of course, for those of you who are familiar will know that this is the album or the band in which Bruce Dickinson came from before his Iron Maiden days. And this band, Samson, was one of the rivals of Iron Maiden. So they've got some of that Iron Maiden flavor. Obviously, Bruce Dickinson being the vocalist on that band and on Iron Maiden, definitely you can see the connection and you can hear the sound that's similar. They're not as metal-like, I think, or fast metal paced as Iron Maiden was. I think there's a notable difference in the sound here. This is a heavy band, of course, bordering on metal at times, some crunchy guitar sounds, some good guitar stuff. The vocals are pretty dominating, but I don't think Bruce Dickinson does as much of that loud, screaming air raid siren stuff that he did with Iron Maiden. There's not as much of that here. The album cover, if you see it, is a bunch of statues of what looks like John Wayne, the Western star from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I know that because my mother was a huge fan of him. Next, pretty strong hard rock, almost an American sound, with just some hints throughout the album of that Deep Purple sound too. I get a little bit of that feel going on here, and the reason I know I get a little bit of it is because when it's playing, I'm thinking Deep Purple in my head. So yeah, that's usually an indication that it's like that. Yeah, so a pretty hard album. Lots of good stuff on here, good riffing stuff, just not quite as metal-like as Iron Maiden or as fast-paced. In fact, all four of these albums are kind of hard rock bands, all within the same realm of music. I think they're not far apart. They all fit in that box fairly nicely. The next album, Angels Hell of a Band, from 1976. This is an American rock band. They do use some keyboards in their music, which is something that you didn't get a lot with the hard rock bands then. The two most notable ones who did use keyboards were Rainbow and Deep Purple, who are part of that family, right? It's got a bit of a poppy feel at times on the album, but it's hard. It's a hard rock album with a bit of a poppy feel and the odd ballad. I think there's one ballad on here, if I remember correctly. And some strong riffing and solos. I remember there's a couple of tracks on here I quite liked that I remembered from when I listened to I used to listen to these guys in the 70s on the Midnight Special. So there was a couple tracks on here that I remember from that. So this was the only album of the four that actually had some of that element in the music. And it was a good album, of course, too. Then the other album by them, Once Upon a Time, is a much later album, like last year. So about 47 years have gone by. The album is a clearer sounding album, I think. But it does have a lot of that classical Angel sound to it, which is quite good. Vocals, again, very similar to that classic Angel sound. Got some killer riffs here at times on the album. There's a little bit of that ballad stuff going on again, but that was common with them. They would often do some hard rock stuff with an odd soft ballad written in there for the time period. That's what they did, right? But it does also have some of that poppy element as well. The last album in the of the four, Magnum 2. So I have done one Magnum album before. I did it this year with their latest album that they released for 2024. Unfortunately, their main guy passed away just a few days or a day or so after the album was released, which is kind of strange. But anyways, his passing, and so I've listened to this album. This album is less heavy. It's not as heavy as that album. It doesn't have that as much of a prog element. The album cover itself isn't as proggy looking as their other stuff, and the music isn't as proggy feel. So it's got that classic sound that they normally have. It's kind of a little bit of that hair metal stuff going on here. I wouldn't call them a hair metal band, but they definitely have that feeling. Some catchy guitar riffing, of course, and catchy riffing overall. Even a little bit of a pop element as well. So, but well within the hard rock feel of all four of these albums. Sorry, there was something on the screen that was irritating me. So anyways, now that we've discussed the four albums, I'm just going to give you a bit of a ranking here on them. So I decided to go with the Angels' Once Upon a Time, their new album, as number 4, getting edged out ever so slightly, like by a hair, by Magnus 2. I think the reason I decided this, I just think the Magnum album sounds a little bit heavier and more cohesive than the Angel album. And I don't know, maybe I just slightly liked it more. That could probably be the reason why I chose it. So those are your fourth and third albums. So Angels Once Upon a Time coming in at 4th, and Magnum 2 coming in at 3. The other two albums were slightly higher and better, I think. The Hell of a Band album coming at number 2. I think largely on my familiarity with the band. I think it got just a hair on the other two albums because I found all three of them very similar. I just think that there's a few songs on that album I'm more familiar with, and so it gets a little bit of an edge from familiarity, and that's why I think it ended up in number 2. Number 1 album was Samson. I think primarily because Dickerson's voice was better than anybody on the other albums. Also, I think this album is a little bit more metal-like, a little bit heavier, with more cohesion to it, and probably overall a better sound and guitar sound to it. Not a ton more, just enough to win, I think. And anyway, so that's how I'm going to rank them. So number 1, Samson, Shock Tales. Number 2, Angels, Hell of a Band. Number 3, Magnum, Magnum 2. And the last but not least, Angels, Once Upon a Time. All 4 of the albums finished in probably the ranking of like a 2 category. So they're not number 1 albums, but they're all good albums. The Samson album, of course, will go on to the semifinals when we do that at the end of this round of these 8 weeks. And the other 3 albums, of course, will finish out of that. But all interesting albums. I think that if you like that hard rock with a little bit of poppy feel to it, maybe even some hair metal sounds going on there, I think you'll like all 4 of these albums. I liked all 4 of them. And so that's how it's going to go. So please like and subscribe. If you got any comments about the albums, the bands, or anything I've said, or if you got any questions, you can put those in the comment section below. Don't forget the notification bell. And we'll be back next week. Remember, 9 o'clock from now on, 9 o'clock on Friday nights for ranking of the albums for the Series 3 that we're doing. And that'll be episode number 2. We'll see you then. Take care and have yourself a good evening. Goodbye.